So I am about to send out 21 cards to CGC in an error submission. Most of these cards are genuine errors. Some of them, I guess you would say, are more variants at this point, going on how CGC classifies them. Most of these I'm going to be sending in the economy tier. I have a few in standard and one in express. So I'm just going to go top down here. Starting off, I have my no damage Ninetales here. It is in near mint condition. I'm very fortunate to have this. I'm hoping, well, an 8.5 would be really nice, but with all that wear on the bottom edge and the corners, I think it's probably going to be an 8. Regardless, it's near mint, and for this card, that is pretty impressive. That guy. Next up, I just recently picked up this Ancient Mew, which is, I guess you would say it's, what would you term this, a double foil or a full holo? Basically, the holo has been layered on this card twice, is my understanding. So I have another ordinary copy here for comparison. Let's see here. And you can pretty much at a glance see the difference. This one on the right is much more holographic, much darker. And if you go a little bit closer up, you can see that there's this holographic pattern on the border of an ordinary Ancient Mew. And on the error copy here, that holo pattern has bled onto the entire border, so you can't actually see a visible pattern, just as an easier way to identify it, although it's pretty obvious at a glance. But yeah, super excited about that one. This one is a bit of a stretch. Some of these in here are going to be a bit of a stretch. This is one of my Holo Bleed Neogenesis Lugias. Now, CGC has stated that they do not recognize Holo Bleeds as error cards. I understand that. I've also seen them designate like a couple evolutions full Holo Bleeds that are just particularly strong. I'm hoping that that will be the case for this Lugia because it's a pretty strong Holo Bleed. Honestly, I don't expect it to happen, but I wanted to get this graded either way, so I figured I would give it a shot. It is near mint. I have 2 others that are not near mint, so if I'm going to grade one, this is probably the one to send. Very exciting. This is my Holo Shift Dark Scizor that I was freakishly fortunate to find on eBay, just randomly on there. Wasn't listed as a Holo Shift. And I offered the guy like 150 bucks, buy it now, hoping that it didn't look too suspicious, and he took it. So, very lucky on my end, because I mean, look at that. I did see one of these on E4 that was, I think it was German. It's not in mint condition, so it's not going to get, it's probably going to be like a 6 or so. But this is the only English one that I've seen. And I mean, Scizor is one of my favorite Pokemon ever. So, absolutely thrilled to have that. I have a heart stamp base Clefairy. Got that little ink spot that has been repeated on multiple copies that looks like a heart, hence the name. Just, you know, it's very fitting for Clefairy. I always thought this was a pretty cool variant. Not technically an error, but a variant. It's not in particularly good condition, so probably gonna max out it again like a 6 or 7, but that's fine with me. I have an ink smear Fossil Haunter. Got the blue ink smears on the right side of the holo there. Another variant, not necessarily an error per se, although I always thought of this as like, oh, it's an error card, and like it is, but it's not the same as like a miscut or something that's a one-off. So I guess that's pretty standard as far as errors go, but super cool card. This is another one that's a bit of a stretch. I have this gray stamp base Machamp, not the shadowless version. You can see, well, a couple things. First, there's this ink spot here. I don't know whether that's insufficient ink or additional ink. I guess it's insufficient. It's like a little spot of magenta looking stuff. And if you shine it in the light, it's kind of hard to see, but you can catch it along the border there. There are these odd sort of streaks that almost look like some sort of varnish smeared or something missing. I don't really know how to describe it, but it goes all across the surface of the card. So I always thought this was a very interesting card just because A, it's a gray stamp, B, it's got this little, I'm going to call it insufficient ink spot, and it's got those weird streaks. So we'll see what happens with this. Not in particularly good shape, but a pretty neat card and definitely something that I want graded, I think, just to see if they designated anything. I've seen a few other people on E4 talk about base hollows that have these black streaks, these vertical lines going across the surface. I have this Zapdos here that has the same. Not sure if that would qualify as an additional ink error. It also notably is a hollow bleed, which is pretty cool, but I'm hoping to get an additional ink designation on this. We will see. It's actually in pretty good shape. There's that guy. This one's a bit more obvious. Have a miscut Flareon, Unlimited Hollow from Jungle. One of my favorite artworks ever. Especially, I mean, it's probably one of my top Jungle arts, if not my favorite one. Just love the colors. Such a nice ruby red. Beautiful card. I don't have too many miscut or super off-center cards in my collection. It's not really something I typically go for, but that one is a bit of an exception. This Jolteon is the, how do you call this? Pink stain, I guess? Like the pink ink smear stain. There are a bunch of first edition Jungle rares that have this. I think it's just the rares. I don't know if it's other cards outside of the rares. I think it's just the rares. I got this at a local card shop a few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was a while. Originally, they didn't want to sell it to me. They were like, hey, we think this is highlighter or damage, or maybe it's a rare error. We're going to look into it and check it out. And I had to come back and get it a second day, which was odd. But I also picked up this one from a friend of mine. Shout outs to PokeRiz on Instagram. You're the man. Hooking me up with this to match my Jolteon. So that's 2 down for the set. Very long ways off, just 2. But I still think these are super cool. It means a bit something to me. It's sort of like, it's a milestone in my collecting journey and discovering different things in the hobby when I discovered that Jolteon. So now this, here. I will show this card I recently picked up from, I think his Instagram handle was Hollowbleed King. This is a no star first edition Moltres, meaning that it is missing the holofoil pattern. This is something that CGC apparently designates and recognizes. I did see one on here. I don't know if I can catch it in the light. It's like right up above his head. I might not be able to catch it. But yeah, you get the idea. The idea is that the hollow pattern is missing. I think that's super dope. And I've been trying to find more. I have this Aerodactyl, which does have some stars. If I can... There. So you can see it's not completely absent, or not completely devoid of stars on the hollow, but it is noticeably... it has noticeably fewer stars than an ordinary hollow does. So I'm hoping that this might get that same designation for missing hollow pattern. I'm not sure because it does have a few. Similarly, I have this Ditto. Same deal. It does have a few stars, but noticeably fewer than an ordinary copy. So we will see. These might just get graded as ordinary hollows, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to take a risk. Here I have a Hollow Shift Dark Arbok. I do already have one of these. I just randomly found another and was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Just gonna send it off. I mean, hollow shifts are just so hard to find. Might as well add a second one. I've also been hunting for unlimited Team Rocket hollows that are low on black ink, which sort of grays out the text, turns the frame around the art box into a lighter shade of gold brown, and also on some cards it changes the artwork, just the color. Here's an ordinary dark Raichu for comparison. So you can kind of see like this Raichu is a bit more orange, and the frame around the art box is missing this shadow texture. Now I have seen one of these graded with CGC. It's up on eBay right now for like 400, 500 bucks or something, which is a bit exorbitant. And they designated this as an insufficient ink error. So I'm hoping that this copy will get the same designation. I don't think it's particularly, yeah, it's not in great shape. So maybe like a 7 or so, but that should be pretty exciting. And I have other low ink rocket hollows I want to grade with them, but I don't know how they would handle that, so I'm holding off for now. Just like that Genesis Lugia, this is probably my strongest Neo-era hollow bleed, is this Discovery Espeon. Just tons of hollow all over the front. It's not in great shape, even though it looks like it, because it is bent. You can see the bend right there, but the hollow bleed is as strong as they come. So if I'm ever going to have a shot at CGC designating a hollow bleed on the label, it's going to be this card, at least from the Neo era. So fingers crossed. And I have a second Neo Discovery Espeon. This one I guess you could also say is a hollow bleed, but it's more so like some sort of obstruction where it has this very obvious splotch there and a second one up here. It's in a bit better shape than the first one, basically just because it's not bent. So that makes a pretty neat duo of Espeons. And then this here, I'm going to call it a double foil Discovery Scizor. You could also call it a hollow bleed. You're kind of sensing a theme here. A lot of these cards that I've collected are sort of something's going on in the hollow. But here is, I would say it's an ordinary scissor. It's actually a square cut, but the hollow is ordinary. And you can see just all the hollow along these slash marks bleeding into the eyes and onto Scizor's claw is very, very obvious, very dense in those areas, as if it was layered on twice. I have seen this error before. I've not seen it designated by CGC. I don't know if they would even recognize that it's anything unordinary, but we're gonna find out. It is not mint. You can see it's got an indentation right there on the surface, but it is the only copy I have managed to find for sale after scouring eBay, so fingers crossed. This one is another stretch. I have lots of these Black Star Mew hollows. It's one of my favorite cards ever. And I noticed that some of them have a lot of yellow ink. You can see all these little streaks of yellow, both over the text and over the Mew himself or herself. And here's another one. It's an ordinary Mew for comparison's sake. So I'm hoping that I can get some sort of additional ink designation on this. Not really sure, but I have a bunch of these, and if I could, that would be pretty neat. This is one of the stronger ones that I have on hand, so we are going to find out. I have this EX Dragon Shedinja, aka one of the best artworks in the set, probably my favorite. It has this streak of white ink across the top on the back. I'm assuming that that is an actual printing defect and not something that was done by a person onto the card. It's also got this weird little, almost looks like a mark of highlighter down there, that yellow streak. So we will see. Hopefully that's an additional ink. And then lastly, I have this Rockets Hitmonchan EX I picked up recently with a very obvious magenta line going straight down the middle of the card on the front. This one's cool, even though I don't really collect EX era. It's in mint condition. It's EX Team Rocket Returns. That's a pretty tough set to track down in good shape. So I thought this was a really cool era to pick up. And there we have it. I don't know how long this is going to take to get all these back. The Ninetales is going express, so I'll get that back first. I will post the results just in case I get any cool Hollow Bleed designations that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the cards.